The sound of engines cut through the shelter's constant noise like a knife through paper. Kira woke from her uncomfortable sleep against the wall and looked around in confusion. Other people were stirring too, heads turning toward the main doors. The engines grew louder, a deep thrumming that spoke of power and money. Kira had worked around ships long enough to recognize the sound of a private transport, the kind that cost more than most people earned in their entire lives. She pushed herself up from the floor, her body protesting every movement. The hunger had gotten worse. Her head swam when she stood and black spots danced at the edges of her vision. She steadied herself against the wall and waited for the dizziness to pass. Around her, people pressed toward the windows and doors trying to see what was happening outside. Through the reinforced glass, Kira caught glimpses of a sleek silver ship settling onto the landing pad. It was beautiful in a way that seemed almost offensive given their circumstances. Smooth lines, gleaming metal, the kind of ship that never worried about fuel costs or maintenance schedules. On its side, she could see a logo, a stylized double helix wrapped around a planet. She recognized it immediately. Nexus Corporation, one of the biggest companies in human space, known for mining operations and transport fleets. The crowd murmured with speculation. Some people said Nexus was here to evacuate their employees. Others claimed it was a publicity stunt. A few optimists hoped it meant rescue for everyone. Kira did not let herself hope. Rich people did not fly private ships to refugee camps out of kindness. They came for their own reasons, and those reasons rarely helped people like her. The ship's boarding ramp lowered and several figures emerged. Security personnel came first, 4 of them wearing the black and silver uniforms of corporate protection. They moved with military precision, scanning the area with professional vigilance. Behind them came a woman in a sharp business suit, carrying a data tablet. And finally a man in expensive casual clothes stepped out into the orange light of New Terra's wounded sky. Even from a distance, even through the dirty windows, Kira recognized him. Gregory Kane. His face was on news broadcasts across human space. Billionaire, industrialist. The man who owned half the mining rights in the outer colonies. She had heard he was ruthless in business but fair to his workers. She had also heard he never did anything without a good reason. What reason could bring him here? The group approached the shelter's main entrance. Security guards at the door straightened up, suddenly nervous about having someone so important in their disaster zone. There was a brief conversation that Kira could not hear, and then Kane and his people were inside the shelter. The crowd pressed closer, curious and desperate. Maybe he would help. Maybe he would bring supplies. Maybe. Kane spoke briefly with the shelter coordinator, a stressed man named Paul who looked like he had not slept in days. Then Kane's assistant, the woman with the tablet, stepped forward and showed Paul something on the screen. Paul's eyebrows rose in surprise. He nodded and gestured toward the security station where Kira had taken Sophie earlier. The woman in the business suit walked directly to the security station. Kira watched as she spoke with Carlos, the guard who had helped with Sophie. Carlos looked confused at first, then pointed toward different areas of the shelter. The woman made notes on her tablet. Then Carlos did something that made Kira's stomach drop. He pointed directly at her. The woman's gaze followed his finger and locked onto Kira. She said something to Kane, who turned to look as well. Even from across the crowded shelter, Kira felt the weight of his attention. It was not hostile, but it was intense, like being examined under a microscope. She resisted the urge to run. She had done nothing wrong. There was no reason to be afraid. Kane walked toward her, his security team creating a buffer through the crowd. People stepped aside automatically, whether from respect or self-preservation. Kira stood her ground, even though everything in her screamed to disappear into the masses. When Kane stopped in front of her, she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. He was tall, probably in his 50s, with gray at his temples and lines around his eyes that spoke of too many late nights and hard decisions. "Kira Martinez?" he asked. His voice was surprisingly gentle for someone so powerful. "Yes," she said, keeping her voice steady. "Can I help you?" Kane gestured to his assistant, who tapped her tablet. A holographic screen appeared between them, floating in the air. It showed security footage from inside the shelter. Kira watched herself walk toward the distribution center. She watched herself receive her meal packet. She watched herself hear Sophie crying and go to investigate. She watched herself give away every bit of her food to a child she did not know. The footage ended. Kira felt her face grow hot. She did not like being watched. She did not like being singled out. What she had done was private, personal. It was not meant to be some kind of performance. "Why are you showing me this?" she asked quietly. Kane dismissed the hologram with a gesture. "Because," he said, "I have been searching for something very specific. Someone very specific, actually. And I think I just found her." He paused. "May we speak somewhere more private?" Kira wanted to say no. Every instinct told her that talking to billionaires led to complications. But curiosity was stronger than caution. She nodded. Kane led her to a small office near the shelter's administrative area. His security team waited outside while his assistant, who introduced herself as Linda Hayes, joined them inside. The office was cramped and cluttered with supply manifests and evacuation schedules. Kane did not seem to notice or care. He gestured for Kira to sit, then took a seat across from her. Linda stood by the door, her tablet ready. "Tell me about yourself," Kane said. Kira frowned. "Why?" "Humor me," she shrugged. "There is not much to tell. I am 17. I am an engineering apprentice at the spaceport, or I was before the evacuation. I work on transport ships mostly. Maintenance, repairs, that kind of thing." She paused. "I do not have family. I grew up in the colony's youth center. I got into the apprenticeship program through test scores." Kane nodded slowly. "No family at all?" "No." "And yet you gave your only meal to a stranger's child." Kira felt defensive. She was hungry. She was scared. What was I supposed to do, ignore her? "Most people did," Kane said softly. "We reviewed hours of footage. Hundreds of people walked past her before you stopped. They had their reasons, I am sure, fear, hunger, exhaustion, survival instincts. But you stopped. Why?" Kira did not know how to answer that. She had not thought about it in those terms. She just did what felt right. "Because she needed help," she said finally. "Because someone should have helped her." Kane exchanged a look with Linda. Something passed between them, some kind of understanding that Kira could not interpret. He leaned forward, his expression serious. "I am going to tell you something that very few people know," he said. "My company discovered something 3 months ago. Something important. Something that could change everything for humanity. But I cannot pursue it alone. I need a team. Not just skilled people, though skill matters. I need people with something else. Something rare." "What?" Kira asked despite herself. "Character," Kane said simply. "I need people who will make the right choice even when it costs them everything. I have been searching for months, reviewing records, watching for moments that reveal who someone truly is." He gestured toward where the hologram had been. "That moment with Sophie, that was what I have been looking for." Kira shook her head. "I do not understand. What does giving away a meal have to do with your discovery?" "Everything," Kane said. "Where we are going, the choices we make will not just affect us. They will affect all of humanity. I need people I can trust to make those choices correctly." He was being deliberately vague, and it frustrated her. But something in his voice, some undercurrent of desperate sincerity, made her listen. This was not a game to him. Whatever he had found, it scared him. It excited him. It mattered. "I have a proposal," Kane continued. "Come with me. Join my team. Help me with this project. In return, I will make sure Sophie finds her parents. I will make sure this shelter gets proper supplies. I will make sure everyone here survives." Kira stared at him. "That is blackmail." "No," Kane said firmly. "That is necessity. I will help this shelter regardless of your answer. But I am asking you to help me with something bigger. Something that matters more than either of us." The office felt too small suddenly. Kira's mind raced. This was insane. She did not know this man. She did not know what he wanted. But she thought about Sophie's face when she ate that meal. She thought about all the other children in this shelter who needed help. She thought about a future where she could maybe, possibly make a real difference. "Tell me more," she said. Kane smiled. "That is exactly what I was hoping you would say." Kane pulled a small device from his pocket and activated it. The air in the office shimmered slightly. "Privacy field," he explained. "What I am about to tell you cannot leave this room." "Not yet." Kira nodded, her heart beating faster. She had heard of privacy fields, expensive tech that blocked all recording devices and sound transmission. Whatever Kane wanted to share, it was serious enough to warrant military-grade security measures in a refugee shelter. Linda tapped her tablet. and another hologram appeared. This one showed a star map, but it was unlike any Kira had seen in her engineering studies. At the edge of explored space, far beyond the outer colonies, a single system was highlighted in red. The system had only one planet, marked as Epsilon Prime. 3 months ago, Kane began, one of my survey ships detected unusual energy signatures coming from this system. We sent a probe. What it found defied explanation. The hologram shifted to show a massive structure on a barren planet's surface. It was a pyramid, but not like any human construction. The sides seemed to shift and change color even in the still image. It was enormous, maybe 2 kilometers tall. Kira leaned forward, her engineering mind immediately trying to understand what she was seeing. What is it? We do not know, Kane admitted. But we know it is old. Millions of years old according to our best estimates. And we know it is not human. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Not human. Alien. Kira had grown up hearing stories about ancient civilizations that might have existed before humanity reached the stars. Every colony had rumors of artifacts and ruins, but they were always just stories. Nothing had ever been proven. Until now. You found proof of aliens, Kira said slowly. Not just proof, Linda interjected. We found a functioning alien facility. Our probes detected power sources inside. Movement. The structure is active. Kane nodded. We sent automated drones to investigate. Every single one was destroyed the moment it tried to enter. The structure has defense systems. Very sophisticated ones. But here is the interesting part. He gestured, and the hologram changed again, showing data streams and analysis reports. The defenses do not attack organic matter, only machines, only artificial intelligence. The structure seems designed to interact with biological beings, not robots. Kira's mind raced. So you need people to go inside? Yes, but not just any people. Kane's expression grew more serious. We managed to retrieve partial data from the probes before they were destroyed. The structure appears to be some kind of test or trial. It responds to biological signatures and seems to evaluate behavior. Our xenoarchaeology team believes it was left by a precursor species, an ancient civilization that wanted to judge younger races. Judge them for what? Kira asked. Worthiness, Kane said simply. Access to knowledge, technology, perhaps even contact with whatever civilization built it. But only if we prove ourselves worthy. And that is where you come in. Kira shook her head. I am just an engineering apprentice. I fix ships. How does that make me qualified for first contact with an alien structure? Kane stood and walked to the small window overlooking the shelter. Because, he said quietly, this is not about technical skills. It is about character. I have the best engineers money can hire. I have scientists with decades of experience. What I need are people who will make the right choices when it matters most. People who will represent humanity as we should be, not as we sometimes are. He turned back to face her. I watched that footage of you and Sophie 50 times. I looked for hesitation, for calculation, for any sign that you were performing for an audience. There was none. You saw a child in need and helped without thinking about the cost to yourself. That is what we need on this mission. That kind of instinctive goodness. Kira felt overwhelmed. This was too much. Too fast. You want me to risk my life based on one good deed? I want you to risk your life for something that matters, Kane corrected. If that structure contains what I think it contains, it could advance human civilization by centuries. Medical breakthroughs, energy solutions, technology we cannot even imagine. But only if we approach it the right way. Only if we send people who embody the best of humanity. Linda stepped forward. We have been building a team for weeks. Each person was chosen for similar reasons. Acts of exceptional character, moments where they put others before themselves. You would not be alone. Kira looked at the hologram of the alien pyramid. It terrified her and fascinated her in equal measure. This was beyond anything she had imagined for her life. She had planned to work her way up through the engineering ranks, maybe get her own shop someday. Simple goals, Achievable goals. This was something else entirely. What if I say no, she asked. Then I find someone else, Kane said. But I would rather have you. You are exactly what this mission needs. Kira thought about the shelter outside this office. She thought about the thousands of people waiting for rescue that kept being delayed. She thought about Sophie, alone and afraid. She thought about all the children across human space who might benefit from the technology Kane described. Then she thought about what he was really asking. He wanted her to face an unknown alien test that had destroyed every probe sent inside. If I agree, she said slowly, I have conditions. Kane nodded. Name them. Sophie gets reunited with her parents. You find them personally, no matter what it takes. Kira's voice was firm. And this shelter gets real supplies. Not tomorrow. Today. Enough food for everyone until the evacuation ships arrive. Done, Kane said without hesitation. Anything else? Kira considered. I want the truth. All of it. No secrets about what we might face out there. If I am risking my life, I deserve to know everything. Fair enough, Kane agreed. You will have full access to all our research, every piece of data we have collected. And if I want to leave the mission at any point? You can leave, Kane said. Though I hope you will not. We need you. Kira stood, up her legs still shaky from hunger but her mind clear. This was probably the most important decision she would ever make. Everything else in her life had been about survival, about getting through each day. This was about something bigger, something that mattered beyond her small world. I will do it, she said. But first, keep your promises about Sophie and the supplies. Kane extended his hand. You have my word. They shook hands, his grip firm and surprisingly warm. Linda smiled for the first time since entering the office. Welcome to the team, she said. What followed happened quickly. Kane made calls on his personal communication device. Within an hour, supply ships from Nexus Corporation began landing near the shelter. Food, medical supplies, blankets, everything the refugees needed. The shelter. Coordinator Paul looked like he might cry with relief. People cheered as the supplies were unloaded. Meanwhile, Linda worked her own miracle. She accessed every database connected to the evacuation, cross-referencing names and family registrations. Within 2 hours, she found Sophie's parents. They were in a different shelter on the other side of the city, frantically searching for their daughter. Kane arranged immediate transport. Kira was there when Sophie was reunited with her mother and father. The little girl ran into their arms, crying and laughing at the same time. Her parents held her like they would never let go. Sophie's mother looked at Kira with tears streaming down her face. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for taking care of her. Kira felt her own eyes sting. She is a brave kid, she said. Sophie pulled away from her parents and ran to Kira, hugging her legs. You are my hero, she said. When I grow up, I want to be just like you. Kira knelt down and hugged her back. Be better than me, she whispered. Be the kind of person who helps others. That is all that matters. As Sophie's family left on the transport, Kira felt something shift inside her. She had made the right choice. Both choices. Giving Sophie her meal had been right. Agreeing to Kane's mission was right. Sometimes you had to trust that doing good things would lead to good places, even when the path was unclear. Kane appeared beside her. Ready? He asked. Kira took one last look at the shelter, at the people who now had food and hope. She thought about the alien pyramid waiting at the edge of space. She thought about the test ahead, and what it might mean for everyone. Yes, she said. I am ready. Good, Kane said. Because we leave in 6 hours, the ship is already being prepped. He paused. One more thing. You should eat something before we go. You are going to need your strength. Despite everything, Kira laughed. It felt good to laugh. It felt good to have purpose. Whatever came next, whatever the alien structure demanded, she would face it with the same instinct that made her help Sophie. She would do what was right, even if it cost everything. That was what being human meant. The Meridian was nothing like the cargo haulers Kira had worked on at the spaceport. Those ships were functional, built for efficiency and profit margins. The Meridian was built for comfort and speed. She walked through corridors that actually had room to breathe, past quarters that looked more like hotel rooms than crew bunks. The ship's hull was reinforced with materials she recognized from military contracts, and the engines produced a steady hum that spoke of power kept carefully in check. Kane met her in the common area, a space with actual furniture instead of mag-locked crates. 3 other people sat around a table talking quietly. They looked up when Kira entered, their conversation stopping mid-sentence. She felt suddenly self-conscious in her worn clothes and scuffed boots. These people looked professional, accomplished. She was just a kid from a youth center. "Everyone," Kane said. "This is Kira Martinez. She's the last member of our team." He gestured to each person in turn. "Kira, meet Marcus Chen, our xenoarchaeology specialist. Lisa Rodriguez, combat and security. And Peter Johnson, linguist." Marcus stood first. He was maybe 30, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and dark hair pulled back in a small ponytail. He extended his hand. "Welcome aboard. I have heard good things about you." Kira shook his hand, confused. "You have?" "Kane shared your story," Marcus said with a small smile. "What you did for that little girl. It takes strength to give when you have nothing." Lisa was next. She was tall and muscular, with short blonde hair and the bearing of someone who had seen combat. Her handshake was firm, almost challenging. "Hope you are ready for this," she said. "It will not be easy." "I know," Kira replied, meeting her gaze steadily. Peter was last. He was older, maybe 50, with gray streaks in his brown hair and laugh lines around his eyes. "Pleasure to meet you, Kira. I look forward to working together." His voice carried a slight accent she could not place. They all sat around the table. Linda brought food, real food, not the processed rations Kira was used to. Fresh vegetables, protein that actually tasted like meat, bread that was warm and soft. Kira tried not to eat too quickly, but her body had other ideas. She had not eaten properly in days. The others politely ignored her enthusiasm. As they ate, Kane explained the mission timeline. The journey to Epsilon Prime would take 2 weeks through faster-than-light jumps and normal space travel. During that time, they would study everything known about the structure and prepare for entry. Each team member would brief the others on their specialty. They would also undergo physical training and team-building exercises. Kane wanted them functioning as a unit before they arrived. After dinner, Marcus gave the first briefing. He projected holograms above the table, showing the alien pyramid from every angle their probes had captured. "The structure measures approximately 2 kilometers on each side," he explained. "Based on decay analysis of the surrounding terrain, we estimate it was built between 5 and 8 million years ago. The civilization that created it, which we are calling the architects, left no other traces we can find. No cities, no ships, nothing but this pyramid." "How is that possible?" Kira asked. "A civilization advanced enough to build this should have left more evidence." "Exactly," Marcus said, clearly pleased by the question, "which suggests either they deliberately removed all traces of their presence, or the pyramid itself is all they wanted to leave behind." "A message, perhaps, or a gift, or a weapon," Lisa added quietly. Marcus nodded. "That is also possible. We simply do not know." Peter took over next, discussing the linguistic challenges. "The structure displays symbols on its exterior. We have cataloged over 3,000 distinct characters. They do not match any known language, human or otherwise. However, there are patterns. Repetitions that suggest grammar. I believe the structure is trying to communicate, but we have not yet cracked the code." He showed examples of the symbols, strange flowing shapes that hurt Kira's eyes to look at for too long. Some seemed to shift slightly even in the still images, though Peter insisted that was just an optical illusion caused by their unusual geometry. Lisa's briefing was more direct. "The structure has destroyed 37 probes. Each one lasted between 15 seconds and 2 minutes inside before being neutralized. The defense systems are precise and overwhelming. Whatever we face in there, we need to be ready for anything." She looked at each of them seriously. "I have trained special forces teams. I have led missions into hostile territory. But this is different. This is an unknown threat designed by minds we cannot comprehend. Stay alert. Follow my lead when it comes to security protocols. And most importantly, trust your team. Finally, Kane spoke about the bigger picture. What we are attempting has never been done before. Humanity's first contact with proven alien technology. The governments know we are exploring Epsilon Prime, but they do not know the full extent of what we found. I wanted a private expedition because I believe this is too important to become a political game. If we succeed, we will share everything we learn with all of humanity. But first, we need to succeed. He paused, looking at each of them. I chose each of you for specific reasons. Marcus, you rebuilt 3 war-torn colonies after the frontier conflicts ended. You spent years helping people instead of advancing your career. Lisa, you saved an enemy soldier during combat when everyone else wanted revenge. Peter, you dedicated 30 years to understanding other cultures instead of exploiting them. And Kira, we all know what you did. Kira felt uncomfortable being highlighted, but Kane continued. The point is, this mission is not just about skill. The structure seems to test character. It needs to see the best of humanity. We are that best. We represent what our species can be when we try. The briefings continued for days. Kira absorbed everything like a sponge, her engineering background helping her understand the technical aspects of the structure's power signatures and material composition. She also trained with Lisa, learning basic self-defense and how to move as part of a team. It was exhausting work, but good exhausting. Purposeful. During downtime, she got to know her teammates better. Marcus told her about his daughter, who was studying art on Earth. His wife had died in the wars, and he had thrown himself into rebuilding to cope with the grief. Helping others was the only thing that made sense, he said. The only thing that felt like it mattered. Lisa opened up slowly, revealing a military career that had ended when she refused an order to fire on civilians. They called it insubordination, she said. I called it being human. Sometimes the rules are wrong. Peter was the most philosophical. He spoke about his decades studying extinct languages and dead cultures. Every civilization thinks it will last forever, he told Kira one evening. But most fade into nothing. The architects knew this. They built something that would endure. I think they wanted to pass on what they learned. Not technology necessarily, but wisdom. Kira found herself thinking about Sophie and the shelter more than she expected. She wondered if the little girl was safe now, back with her family. She wondered if the supplies Kane had sent were still helping people. She wondered if what she was doing out here, flying toward an alien pyramid at the edge of space, would make any difference to kids like Sophie. One night, unable to sleep, she found Kane on the observation deck. He stood alone, watching the stars slide past as the ship cut through space. He did not seem surprised when she joined him. Cannot sleep either, he asked. Too much to think about, Kira admitted. They stood in comfortable silence for a while. Finally, Kane spoke. I had a daughter once. Her name was Claire. She died in a plague outbreak on Kepler-7. She was 8 years old. His voice was steady, but Kira heard the old pain underneath. I have spent the last 12 years asking myself why I kept living when she did not. What was the point? What was I supposed to do with all this money and power when I could not save the one person who mattered? I am sorry, Kira said softly. Finding this structure gave me an answer, Kane continued. Maybe I can save others. Maybe I can make sure no more children die from diseases we should be able to cure. Maybe that is why I am still here. He looked at her. That little girl you helped, Sophie? You gave her a future. You did not think about it, you just did it. That is the instinct we need at that pyramid. That is what will make the difference. Kira understood then why Kane had chosen her, why he cared so much about character over credentials. He was not just looking for people to explore an alien structure. He was looking for people who would make the right choice when everything depended on it. People who would remember that individuals mattered, that compassion was strength, not weakness. We will succeed, she said, surprising herself with her certainty. Kane smiled. Yes, I believe we will. The ship's AI, Newton, announced they were approaching the final jump point. One more faster-than-light jump, and they would be in the Epsilon Prime system. Real space travel from there to the planet would take 6 hours. Kane called everyone to the bridge. As the ship prepared for the jump, Kira felt her heart race. This was it. No more preparation, no more studying. Soon they would be face to face with something humanity had wondered about for centuries. Proof that we were not alone. Proof that others had walked among the stars long before we learned to fly. The jump drive engaged. Space twisted. Epsilon Prime was a dead world. Kira stared at the view screen as the meridian descended through the thin atmosphere. watching the barren landscape roll beneath them. The planet had no oceans, no forests, no signs of life, just endless plains of gray dust and jagged rock formations that looked like bones jutting from the ground. According to the scans, the atmosphere was breathable but cold, and the planet had not seen water in millions of years. But in the middle of all that emptiness, the pyramid blazed like a jewel. Even from orbit, it was massive. As they drew closer, Kira understood just how massive. 2 kilometers of smooth crystalline material that reflected the pale sunlight in colors that should not exist. The surface seemed to shift from deep purple to bright gold to colors she had no names for. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Landing zone is clear," Newton announced in its calm, synthetic voice. "No hostiles detected, no life signs within scanning range. Structure is generating significant electromagnetic radiation, but levels are within safe parameters." Kane stood at the bridge controls, his jaw set with determination. "Take us down 300 meters from the main entrance." Standard landing protocol. The ship touched down gently on the dusty surface. Through the windows, Kira could see the pyramid dominating the horizon. This close, it looked less like a building and more like a mountain that someone had carved into perfect geometric shapes. The entrance was a massive archway, at least 50 meters tall, covered in the flowing symbols Peter had shown them. Lisa stood and began checking her equipment. She wore a tactical suit with built-in monitors and carried several scanning devices. "I am going out first," she announced. "Standard security sweep before anyone else exits." No one argued. Lisa was the professional. They watched on the monitors as she descended the boarding ramp, her movements cautious and controlled. She moved in a wide circle around the landing site, checking for threats, scanning for traps. After 10 minutes, she signaled all clear. Kane gathered them in the airlock. They all wore suits, not full environment gear, just reinforced clothing with basic life support in case something went wrong. Kane had insisted they look like explorers, not soldiers. The structure had destroyed armed probes but might respond differently to vulnerable organic life. "Remember," Kane said, "we are here to learn, not conquer. We approach with respect. We listen before we act, and we trust each other." He looked at each of them. "Whatever happens in there, we face it together." Kira's heart hammered in her chest as the airlock cycled open. The air that rushed in was cold and dry, tasting of dust and minerals. She followed the others down the ramp, her boots crunching on the gray sand. The sky above was pale orange, and the sun looked smaller than Earth's sun, more distant. Everything felt alien and wrong, but also strangely beautiful. They walked toward the pyramid in a loose group, Lisa leading, Kane in the center, the others spread around him. As they got closer, Kira noticed details she had not seen in the holograms. The surface was not smooth after all. It was covered in tiny inscriptions, millions of them. Layer upon layer of symbols so small they were barely visible. It was like every atom of the structure carried information. The entrance loomed before them. The archway was even more impressive up close. Perfectly geometric but also somehow organic, as if the pyramid had grown rather than been built. The symbols on the arch glowed faintly, pulsing with a rhythm that reminded Kira of a heartbeat. Peter stepped forward, his recording equipment active. He spoke carefully in several human languages, then tried mathematical sequences, universal constants, anything that might indicate peaceful intent. The symbols pulsed brighter for a moment, then dimmed again. "It is listening," Peter said quietly, "or at least responding to auditory input." Marcus knelt near the entrance, examining the ground. No debris, no erosion. The structure maintains itself somehow. He looked up at the towering walls. After millions of years, it should show some wear, but it looks brand new. Kira walked closer to the entrance, drawn by something she could not explain. The engineering part of her mind cataloged everything, trying to understand the construction, the materials, the power source. But another part of her, something deeper, felt pulled toward the darkness beyond the arch. "Do you feel that?" she asked quietly. Lisa nodded. "Like the structure is aware of us." Kane took a deep breath. "Well, we did not come all this way to stand outside." He stepped toward the entrance. "Let us see what the architects have to say." The moment Kane crossed the threshold, the pyramid came alive. Light erupted from every surface, not harsh but pervasive, filling every corner with soft white radiance. The symbols on the walls began to move, flowing like water, rearranging themselves into patterns, and then impossibly the floor beneath them changed. What had been stone became transparent, showing depths beneath that seemed to go down forever. Kira gasped and stumbled. Marcus caught her arm, steadying her. They were standing on nothing, suspended above an abyss, but the surface held them firmly. Her mind struggled to process what her eyes were seeing. "Stay close," Lisa warned. "Do not touch anything unless we know it is safe." They moved deeper into the structure, following what seemed to be a corridor. But corridor was the wrong word. The space around them did not obey normal geometry. Walls curved in directions that should not exist. Distances seemed to change when she looked away and back. It was like walking through a dream, where logic bent and reformed constantly. Holographic displays appeared around them, showing images they could not quite interpret. Starscapes, alien creatures that might have been the architects, mathematical formulas that danced at the edge of comprehension. Peter recorded everything, his hands shaking with excitement. "This is a library," he said in awe. "A living library. The structure is showing us things, trying to communicate." A large chamber opened before them. The room was circular, with a raised platform in the center. As they approached, the platform activated and a hologram appeared above it. The image was of a humanoid figure, but clearly not human. It stood maybe 3 meters tall with elongated limbs and a head that was too large. Its skin looked like it was made of the same crystalline material as the pyramid. The figure's mouth moved and sounds emerged. Not words, not exactly, but something that carried meaning. Peter worked frantically with his translation equipment. "It is showing us its species," he said. "The architects. This is what they looked like." The hologram changed, showing a thriving civilization, cities of impossible beauty, ships that sailed between stars, a culture that had mastered their galaxy. And then slowly it showed decline. The cities emptied. The ships stopped flying. The species faded into nothing. "They died," Marcus said softly. "The entire civilization just faded away." The hologram shifted again, showing the construction of the pyramid, not by machines but by the architects themselves, pouring their knowledge and purpose into this structure. Their final act as a species was to create this test, this challenge for younger civilizations. "Why?" Kira asked aloud. As if responding to her question, the hologram changed one more time. It showed a simple scene, an architect helping another who had fallen. Then it showed conflict, destruction, civilizations tearing themselves apart. Then it showed cooperation, different species working together, building something greater than any could build alone. "They are showing us choices," Kane said. "The choice between helping and harming. Between building and destroying." The hologram faded and the chamber began to change. Doors appeared in the walls, 3 of them, each marked with different symbols. And in the center of the room a voice spoke. It was not words, but everyone understood it somehow, the meaning translating directly into their minds. "The trial begins. Choose your path. 3 challenges await. Pass them all and receive what we have left for you. Fail any and leave with nothing." The voice faded, leaving them alone in the chamber. They looked at each other, understanding the weight of what they faced. This was not exploration anymore. This was the test Kane had predicted. Everything they did from this point forward would be judged. Lisa checked each door with her scanners. "No traps I can detect, but I cannot see through them either. The structure is blocking deeper scans." Marcus studied the symbols above each door. "These represent concepts, I think. This one," he pointed to the left door, "seems to mean sacrifice or loss. This middle one is harder, maybe cooperation or unity, and the right one could be knowledge or wisdom." Peter nodded slowly. "The architects are giving us a choice. Which challenge we face first?" Kane looked at his team. "Thoughts?" "We should start with the middle door," Lisa suggested. "Cooperation is our strength. We trained for this." "I agree," Marcus added. "Unity before sacrifice, wisdom before either." Kira looked at the 3 doors, feeling the weight of decision. Somewhere beyond these challenges was knowledge that could save countless lives. Medical cures, energy solutions, technology to lift humanity to new heights, but only if they proved worthy, only if they made the right choices. "Middle door," she said firmly. Kane nodded. "Unanimous then. We proceed together. Whatever happens, we face it as a team." They approached the middle door. As they got close, it dissolved into light, revealing a corridor beyond. The walls pulsed with the same heartbeat rhythm as the entrance. Somewhere deep, the corridor stretched ahead of them like a throat leading into darkness. Kira walked behind Kane, her senses heightened, alert for any danger. The walls pulsed with that steady rhythm, and she realized it matched her own heartbeat. The structure was synchronizing with them, learning them, preparing its test. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, the corridor opened into a new chamber. This one was different from the first, smaller, more intimate. The walls showed moving images, scenes from Earth and the colonies. Human history played out around them in holographic detail. Wars, disasters, moments of cruelty and hate, but also moments of beauty, people helping each other, strangers becoming friends, love in all its forms. It is studying us, Peter said quietly, learning what humanity is before it judges us. In the center of the chamber, 5 pedestals rose from the floor. Each pedestal held a small crystalline object that glowed softly. As they approached, the voice returned, that strange communication that bypassed language and spoke directly to understanding. Unity is survival. Division is death. Prove you understand this truth. Each of you must take one crystal. But know this: the crystals are connected. The action of one affects all. Choose carefully, cooperate, or fail. The voice faded. They gathered around the pedestals, examining the crystals without touching them. They looked identical, each about the size of a fist, pulsing with inner light. Marcus pulled out a scanner. I am not detecting any obvious traps, but I cannot tell what the crystals will do when we take them. The structure said our actions affect each other, Lisa noted. Maybe taking one crystal triggers something in the others? Kira studied the pedestals more carefully. They were arranged in a circle, equidistant from each other. But when she looked closer, she noticed tiny symbols carved into the base of each pedestal. Different symbols for each one. Peter, she said, can you read these? Peter knelt beside each pedestal, his translation device working overtime. His expression grew thoughtful. These symbols represent concepts. This one means beginning. This one means journey. This one means challenge. This one means choice. And this last one means ending. A sequence, Kane said. Beginning, journey, challenge, choice, ending. That is not random. That is a story. The story of any meaningful endeavor. So we take them in order? Marcus suggested, but Kira shook her head. No, look at how they are arranged. They are in a circle. In a circle, everything is connected. There is no true beginning or ending, just continuous flow. Maybe that is the lesson. We are supposed to take them simultaneously. Lisa frowned. But how do we coordinate that without practice? One person moves too fast or too slow and we fail. We trust each other, Kane said simply. That is what cooperation means. Not perfect synchronization, but trust that each person will do their part. They positioned themselves, each standing before a pedestal. Kira's was the one marked journey. She found that fitting. Her whole life had been a journey from nothing to here, to this moment that might define humanity's future. On 3, Kane said. We reach out together. We trust together. 1. Kira's heart raced. 2. She thought about Sophie, about the meal she had given away, about the choice that had brought her here. 3. 5 hands reached out as one. 5 crystals were lifted simultaneously, and the chamber exploded with light. Kira felt the crystal in her hand come alive. It sent pulses of information directly into her mind, showing her things she could not understand but somehow knew. She saw the other team members through the crystal's perception. She felt what they felt. Marcus's dedication to helping others, Lisa's fierce protective instinct, Peter's endless curiosity, Kane's desperate need to make his daughter's death mean something. And they felt her. They saw Sophie. They understood her choice. They knew her not through words but through direct experience. For a brief moment, 5 people became something larger. They were not just a team. They were a single consciousness with 5 perspectives. Then the sensation faded, and they were individuals again, but changed. They understood each other on a level that went beyond normal human connection. The structure had done something to them. forged a bond that would not break easily. The crystals dissolved in their hands, becoming mist that sank into their skin. The pedestals lowered back into the floor. A new door appeared, leading deeper into the structure. That was intense, Lisa said, her voice shaky. Did everyone else feel what I felt? Marcus asked. They all nodded. Peter smiled slightly. I think we passed the first test. The structure wanted to see if we could truly cooperate, not just coordinate. Real cooperation requires understanding. Now we understand each other completely. 2 tests remain, Kane reminded them. Let us keep moving. The next corridor was longer. As they walked, the walls began showing new images, not of Earth but of other worlds, other species. The holograms showed civilizations rising and falling. Some achieved great heights before destroying themselves in wars. Others stagnated, afraid to take risks, eventually fading into obscurity. A few, a very few, found balance and thrived. The architects are showing us patterns, Peter said. Species that failed their tests, warning us. One image caught Kira's attention. A species that looked almost human, walking on 2 legs, building cities. They developed advanced technology but used it to divide themselves into hostile factions. The holograms showed them fighting over resources, over ideology, over nothing that mattered in the end. Eventually their wars consumed them. Their planet became a wasteland. That could be us, Marcus said quietly, if we make the wrong choices. The corridor ended at another chamber. This one was vast, with a ceiling that disappeared into darkness above. In the center stood a massive holographic display showing the galaxy itself. Billions of stars rotated slowly. Many were marked with symbols. Those marks, Peter said, pointing. Some are green, some are red, some are gray. Green must be species that passed the test. Red are those that failed. Gray are extinct civilizations that never reached this point. Kira counted quickly. There were thousands of marked stars, hundreds of green marks, even more red marks, and gray marks beyond counting. The galaxy was full of dead civilizations that never made it this far. So many failures, Lisa whispered. And so many successes, Kane countered. Hundreds of species proved themselves worthy. We can too. The holographic galaxy shifted, zooming in on a specific sector. Their sector, human space. Earth was marked in blue, neither green nor red. Undecided, waiting to be judged. The voice returned, louder now, more forceful. You have shown unity. Now show wisdom. Before you lies knowledge, the understanding we accumulated over millions of years. Medicine to cure any disease, energy to power your civilization forever. Technology to shape worlds. All of this can be yours. But wisdom demands restraint. Knowledge without wisdom leads to destruction. Answer truly. Are you ready for what we offer? Or will you use it to destroy yourselves? The holographic galaxy disappeared, replaced by 2 new holograms. One showed humanity thriving, using advanced technology to eliminate poverty, disease, and conflict. Ships sailed between stars peacefully. Different cultures cooperated. It was a vision of paradise. The other hologram showed humanity tearing itself apart with the same technology. Weapons of unimaginable power, environmental collapse from uncontrolled industry, society fragmenting into warring factions over who controlled the new knowledge. It was a vision of hell. Choose, the voice commanded. Claim the knowledge and accept the responsibility, or refuse it, and leave unharmed but unchanged. There is no shame in admitting you are not ready. Many species have made that choice and returned when they matured. But choose now. The weight of the decision crushed down on them. This was what Kane had feared and hoped for, a choice that would define humanity's future. Take the gift and risk misusing it, or refuse it and condemn people like Sophie to suffering that could have been prevented. We need to discuss this, Marcus said. They gathered in a circle away from the holograms. Kane spoke first. I brought us here because I believed humanity was ready, that we had grown enough, learned enough to handle this responsibility. But now, facing the actual choice, I am less certain. We are still divided, still fighting wars, still letting people suffer when we could help them. But we are also capable of incredible compassion, Kira argued. Look at us. 5 people from different backgrounds who came together for something bigger than ourselves. That is humanity too. The structure is not asking if we are perfect, Peter added. It is asking if we are wise enough to use knowledge carefully. Wisdom is not about being flawless. It is about learning from mistakes. Lisa remained quiet for a long moment. Finally, she said, I have seen the worst of humanity. Wars fought for stupid reasons, people killed over nothing. But I have also seen soldiers share their last rations with enemy wounded. I have seen enemies become friends when they stopped seeing each other as enemies. We are not ready to be perfect, but maybe we are ready to try. They all looked at Marcus. He was the eldest among them besides Cain, the one who had spent years rebuilding colonies. I think, he said slowly, the question is not whether we will make mistakes with this knowledge. We will. The question is whether we can learn from those mistakes fast enough, whether our desire to do good outweighs our tendency to do harm. I believe it does. The light shifted from white to gold, warm and welcoming. The holograms of paradise and destruction faded away, replaced by something new. A doorway appeared in the far wall, ornate and inviting. Beyond it, they could see what looked like a library, shelves upon shelves of crystalline data storage reaching up into infinity. The knowledge, Peter breathed. It is all there. But as they moved toward the door, the structure spoke again. The voice was different this time, sadder somehow. You have shown unity. You have claimed wisdom. One test remains. The hardest test. The test that has broken even the strongest species. Prepare yourselves. The golden light darkened to red. The welcoming doorway sealed itself. And the floor beneath them shimmered, becoming transparent again. But instead of showing an endless abyss, it showed something far worse. A holographic simulation materialized around them, so real that Kira forgot for a moment they were inside an alien structure. They stood in what looked like a human colony, buildings and streets and people going about their lives. But something was wrong. The sky was too dark. Sirens wailed in the distance. People ran, panic on their faces. What is this? Lisa asked, her hand instinctively reaching for weapons she was not carrying. The simulation zoomed out, showing the colony from above. It was under attack. Ships descended from orbit, firing on the settlement. Not human ships. Something else. Something with technology that made their weapons look like toys. The colony's defenses tried to fight back but failed miserably. This is not real, Marcus said, but his voice shook. It is a simulation. A test, the voice spoke again. This colony holds 5,000 people. They will die unless you save them. You have the power to do so, but there is a cost. To save them, you must abandon the knowledge. The door to the library will seal forever. You can have the people or the knowledge. Not both. Choose quickly. Time is running out. Cain swore under his breath. This is impossible. We came all this way. The simulation showed the attack intensifying. Buildings collapsed. People screamed. And Kira realized something terrible. The colony looked familiar. She recognized the architecture, the layout of the streets. It was modeled after New Terra. The simulation was showing them people like those they had left behind in the shelters. A new hologram appeared beside them, showing a different option. A weapon. Advanced alien technology that could destroy the attacking ships and save countless future colonies from similar threats. Take this weapon, the voice offered. Abandon the people in the simulation. They are already dead. But save millions in the future? Be strategic. Be logical. Sacrifice the few for the many. The simulation showed the death toll climbing. 3,000 dead. 4,000. Time was running out. The weapon gleamed enticingly, promising power and protection. We cannot save everyone, Lisa said, her training taking over. The weapon gives us strategic advantage. We protect all of humanity, not just one colony. But those people, Marcus argued, pointing at the simulation. We cannot just let them die. They are not real, Lisa shot back. This is a test. The weapon is real technology we can use. Does that matter? Peter asked quietly. Real or simulated, the choice is the same. Do we value people or power? Cain looked torn. Kira could feel his internal struggle through the bond the crystals had created. His strategic mind said, take the weapon. His heart said, save the people. He was being pulled apart by the decision. 5,000 people, Kira said slowly, or technology that might save millions. That is what the structure is asking us. But I think it is a trick question. They all looked at her. The simulation showed the colony's shield failing. Incoming fire would reach civilian shelters in seconds. What do you mean? Kane asked desperately. Kira thought about Sophie, about giving away her meal when she had nothing, about the choice that had brought her here. The architects are testing what we value most. Knowledge, power, or people. They showed us their own civilization earlier. They had all the knowledge, all the power. But they still died out. Why? Peter's eyes widened. Because knowledge and power without purpose are meaningless. They lost something essential, something that made existence worthwhile. Compassion, Marcus added. They lost the ability to care about individuals. They became so advanced they forgot why advancement mattered. So this test is not about the smart choice, Kira continued. It is about the right choice. And the right choice is always to save people, even when it costs everything. But the knowledge, Kane said weakly. Medical cures. Technology to prevent suffering. We would be giving that up. No, Kira said firmly. We would be proving we deserve it. The architects do not want to give their legacy to species that value power over people. They want to give it to species who will use it for the right reasons. The simulation showed the weapon one more time, gleaming and deadly. The colony's death toll hit 4,500. 1,500 people left alive and running out of time. Lisa closed her eyes. You are right. I have spent my whole career making strategic decisions, and the strategic decision killed my soul. That is why I refused that order. That is why I am here. She opened her eyes. We saved the people. Marcus nodded immediately. Agreed. Peter smiled sadly. I have spent my life studying dead civilizations. I know what kills them. It is not lack of knowledge. It is lack of compassion. Save the people. They all looked at Kane. The decision was unanimous, but somehow Kira knew it needed to be his choice. He was their leader. He was the one who had brought them here. He needed to be the one who decided what humanity valued most. Kane stared at the simulation. The colony was burning. The weapon was right there, offering safety and power. The library beyond the sealed door held everything he had dreamed of. Everything that could have saved his daughter if they had possessed it years ago. But Claire was gone. These people, simulated or not, were still here. Still alive. Still capable of being saved. We saved them, Kane said, his voice breaking. We save every single one of them. And we let the weapon go. We let the knowledge go. Because if we cannot make this choice, we do not deserve any of it. He walked to the holographic controls, the ones showing the colony defense systems. Newton, he called out, and somehow the ship's AI heard him across the distance. Emergency beam out. All colonists. Do it now. Understood. Newton's voice replied through the structure itself. Initiating transport. The simulation showed people vanishing in sparkles of light as the Meridian's transporters pulled them to safety. One by one, family by family, the colonists disappeared from danger. The attacking ships, realizing their targets were escaping, intensified fire. Buildings exploded. The colony became an inferno. But the people were gone. All 5,000, transported to the Meridian's cargo bays and passenger areas. The simulation showed them safe, confused but alive. Children crying but unharmed. Parents holding their kids. Strangers comforting each other. The weapon faded away. The sealed door to the library remained sealed. And the team stood in the empty chamber, having given up everything they came for. Kira felt tears on her face. She did not regret it. Not for a second. This was who humanity needed to be. This was what the architects wanted to see. The simulation ended. The chamber returned to normal. And the voice spoke one final time, but now it carried warmth, approval, something almost like joy. You have passed. Unity and cooperation. Wisdom in choosing knowledge with responsibility. And now the greatest test. You chose people over power. You chose compassion over strategy. You understood what we could not teach but only test. You are ready. The sealed door exploded open, but not to violence. It opened to welcome them. The library beyond beckoned. All the knowledge they thought they had lost by making the right choice. The weapon was never real, the voice explained. It was temptation. The colony was never real. It was a test. But your choice was real. Your values were real. And that is what matters. Species who pass this test understand that knowledge exists to serve life, not replace it. Power exists to protect, not dominate. And advancement means nothing if you lose your ability to care about individual beings. The voice paused. The knowledge is yours. Use it well. Use it as you used your choice in this chamber. Remember always that technology is a tool. Compassion is the purpose. Then the voice faded one last time. Welcome to the legacy of the architects. May you succeed where we failed. May you remember what we forgot. May you value the smallest life as much as the largest achievement. Kane fell to his knees, overwhelmed. The others gathered around him. Through their bond, they shared the relief, the joy, the understanding of what they had accomplished. We did it, Marcus whispered. We proved ourselves, Peter added. We chose right, Lisa confirmed. Kira looked at the open doorway, at the library of infinite knowledge waiting beyond. She thought about Sophie and all the children like her. She thought about the sick who could be healed, the hungry who could be fed, the lost who could be found. All of it possible now. All of it earned by choosing compassion over convenience. Come on, she said, helping Kane to his feet. Let us go see what the architects left for us. And then let us go home and make sure we use it the way they intended. To help people. To save lives. To be worthy of what we have been given. They walked through the doorway together, 5 people who had proven that humanity was ready. Not perfect. Not flawless. The library was impossible. That was the only word Kira could find for it. Shelves stretched in every direction, up and down and sideways in ways that hurt her eyes to follow. The crystalline data storage devices pulsed with inner light, each one containing more information than all of human knowledge combined. And there were millions of them. Peter walked among the shelves like a man in a dream, his fingers trailing along the crystalline surfaces. Medicine, energy, agriculture, engineering, biology, physics, everything, it is all here. He turned to look at the others, his eyes wet. Do you understand what this means? We just solved every major problem humanity faces: hunger, disease, energy shortages. All of it. Gone. Marcus was more cautious. We also took on an enormous responsibility. The architects warned us, knowledge without wisdom leads to destruction. We need to be very careful about how we release this. Kane stood in the center of the library, slowly turning to take it all in. We will not keep it secret. That would be wrong. But we will be smart about distribution. We create a foundation, staffed by people like us, people who understand what we learned in those tests. We share the knowledge freely, but we teach the wisdom that comes with it. Lisa had found something interesting. She held a crystalline data device that showed holographic instructions. This one is about the structure itself, how it works, how it was built. She scrolled through the information. The architects left dozens of these pyramids scattered across the galaxy. They are all connected. Any species that passes the test gains access to a network, a way to communicate with other worthy civilizations. We are not alone anymore, Peter said softly. There are hundreds of other species out there who passed this test. We can talk to them, learn from them. Kira walked deeper into the library, drawn by something she could not name. In the back, away from the technical knowledge, she found a section that felt different. The crystals here were smaller, more personal. She picked one up and felt it activate in her hand. Images flooded her mind, but not of technology. Of art, music, poetry, stories. The architects were not just scientists, she said aloud. They were artists too. They wanted us to have their culture, not just their tools. Kane joined her, examining another crystal. They wanted us to know them, to understand them, so we would not make their mistakes. He looked at Kira. What do you think their mistake was? They had all this knowledge, all this power. What went wrong? Kira thought about the holograms they had seen, the civilization fading away. They forgot why it mattered. They became so focused on advancement that they forgot about each other. They stopped caring about individuals. And when you stop caring about individuals, what is the point of existence? That is why the final test was about saving people, Marcus said, joining their conversation. That was the lesson. Never stop caring. Never stop seeing each person as important. They spent hours in the library, barely scratching the surface of what was available. Newton helped catalog everything, organizing the data in ways human minds could process. The ship's cargo holds filled with crystalline copies, backup storage in case anything happened to the original structure. Finally, exhausted and overwhelmed, they left the pyramid. The structure sealed itself behind them, returning to dormancy. But it would wake for others. Other human explorers would come, take the tests, prove themselves. The architects had not left their legacy for just 5 people. They had left it for all of humanity. The journey back to human space took 2 weeks, same as the journey out. But everything felt different now. They carried treasure beyond measure. They carried responsibility beyond comprehension. And they carried the weight of proving the architects had chosen correctly in judging humanity worthy. Kane spent most of the journey planning the foundation. He contacted his lawyers, his business partners, his connections in government. By the time they reached the first major colony, the Architects Foundation was already being established. It would be independent, not owned by any company or government. Its board would include scientists, ethicists, artists, and ordinary people. Its mission would be to distribute the knowledge wisely, teaching the values that came with it. Marcus was appointed head of cultural programs. He would ensure the architects' art and philosophy received as much attention as their technology. Peter became chief of communications, both for translating the alien knowledge and for managing contact with other species through the pyramid network. Lisa led security, making sure no one tried to weaponize what they had found. And Kira, still just 17 years old, became one of the Foundation's youngest directors. She would oversee engineering applications, making sure technology reached people who needed it most. But more importantly, she would tell the story. She would visit schools and colonies and settlements explaining what they had learned on Epsilon Prime. Not just about the architects, but about humanity itself. People need to know, Kane told her. They need to understand that we were judged and found worthy. But they also need to know why. The compassion, the cooperation, the choice to value people over power, those are the things that made us worthy. Those are the things we need to protect. The first technology released was medical. Within 6 months, diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries were curable. Cancer became as manageable as a common cold. Genetic disorders were preventable. Aging could be slowed dramatically. The architect's medicine was gentle, working with human biology rather than forcing it to change. Energy came next. Clean, infinite power that could be generated anywhere. No more burning fossil fuels. No more nuclear accidents. No more energy poverty. Every colony, every settlement, every home could have as much power as they needed. Agricultural advances followed. Crops that could grow in any soil, even in space stations. Food production doubled, then tripled. Hunger became a logistics problem, not a scarcity problem. And logistics problems could be solved, but the Foundation was careful. They did not just hand out technology, they taught it. Every new advance came with education about responsible use. Every colony that received help also received training on the values that made humanity worthy of the architect's gift. It was not perfect. Some people misused what they learned. Some governments tried to monopolize access. But the Foundation held firm, insisting that the knowledge belonged to everyone. 2 years after returning from Epsilon Prime, Kira found herself back on New Terra. The planet had recovered from the solar flare disaster. The shields were stronger now, rebuilt with architects' technology. The colonies were thriving. And Shelter Complex 7 had been converted into a museum, a reminder of humanity's struggles and triumphs. She walked through the empty shelter, remembering the hunger, the fear, the desperation. She found the spot where she had given Sophie her meal. A plaque had been placed there telling the story. Here, compassion changed everything, it read. Hello, Kira. She turned to find a girl standing behind her. Not a little girl anymore. Sophie was 8 now, taller, more confident. Her parents stood in the background, smiling. Sophie, Kira said, kneeling down. Look at you. You have grown so much. I wanted to thank you, Sophie said. My parents told me what you did. How you gave me your food. How it led to everything that happened. Kira shook her head. I just did what anyone should do. You were hungry. You needed help. But not everyone did help, Sophie said seriously. You did. And because you did, we have all this. She gestured around them. My mom's cancer is gone because of architects' medicine. My dad has a good job building the new energy plants. We have a real home now, not just emergency housing. All because you were kind to a scared little girl. Tears stung Kira's eyes. The architects taught us something important. No act of kindness is too small. Every choice to help someone matters. It ripples out, touching lives you will never see. Sophie nodded. I am going to study medicine. I want to help people like you helped me. I want to make sure no one suffers when we have the knowledge to prevent it. That is perfect, Kira said, hugging her. That is exactly what we need. People like you who remember why the knowledge matters. They talked for an hour, catching up, sharing stories. Then Sophie's parents called her and she waved goodbye. Kira watched her go. This child who had changed everything without knowing it. If she had not been hungry that day, if Kira had not heard her crying, if any single moment had been different, they might never have found the pyramid, never passed the tests, never brought back the architect's legacy, but they had. And humanity was better for it. Kane found her as the sun set over New Terra's recovered landscape. Thinking deep thoughts? He asked. Just remembering, Kira said, wondering if we are living up to what the architects expected. We are trying, Kane said. That is all they asked. Not perfection, just effort. We choose compassion every day. We share what we have. We help those who need help. And when we fail, we learn and try again. He pulled out a datapad and showed her the latest reports. Contact had been established with 3 other species through the pyramid network. All of them had passed the same tests. All of them had proven worthy. Humanity was beginning to form alliances, trade agreements, cultural exchanges. The galaxy was opening up in ways previous generations had only dreamed about. The architects wanted this, Kane said. They wanted species. The sky above New Terra burned orange and red like a wound that would not heal. Kira Martinez pressed her face against the reinforced window of Shelter Complex 7 and watched the solar radiation dance across the atmosphere. She was 17 years old and had seen enough disasters to last a lifetime, but this one felt different. This one felt bigger than anything she could fix with her engineering tools and quick thinking. Behind her, 3,000 people filled the massive warehouse that had been converted into an emergency shelter. The air smelled of sweat, fear, and the chemical toilets that lined the far wall. Children cried. Adults argued over blanket allocations. The elderly sat in quiet resignation, having survived too much already to waste energy on panic. Kira pulled her jacket tighter around her thin frame and turned away from the window. The solar flare had hit without warning 6 days ago. The planetary shield grid, which protected New Terra from radiation, had failed in 17 sectors. Evacuation orders came fast but chaotic. Kira had been working at the spaceport maintenance bay when the alarm sounded. She grabbed her tool bag and ran with everyone else. Now she was here, trapped with thousands of others waiting for relief ships that kept getting delayed. Food was the biggest problem. The shelter had supplies for maybe 2 days when they arrived. They were now on day 6. Yesterday, people got half rations. Today, they announced quarter rations. Tomorrow, nobody knew. Fights had broken out near the distribution center. Security guards, overwhelmed and hungry themselves, struggled to maintain order. Kira had watched a man punch another man over a protein bar. She had watched a woman steal formula from a mother with twins. Desperation made people forget who they were. Kira walked toward the distribution center, her stomach growling so loud she thought others might hear it. She had not eaten since yesterday morning. 1 small pack of crackers and a cup of water. That was all. But today was distribution day again, and she had her number called. Q743. She clutched the yellow ticket in her hand like it was made of gold. The line moved slowly. Very slowly. People in front argued about portions. A security guard threatened to skip anyone who caused trouble. Kira kept her head down. She did not want trouble. She just wanted to eat something, anything, to stop the dizzy feeling in her head and the weakness in her legs. Engineering work required strength, and she had none left. When she finally reached the front, a tired woman with gray hair handed her a meal packet. It was small, depressingly small, but it was food. The packet contained a nutrient bar, a pouch of rehydrated vegetables, and a small container of protein paste. Kira looked at it like it was a feast. She thanked the woman and turned away, already planning where she would sit to eat in peace. That was when she heard the crying. Kira stopped walking. The sound came from behind a stack of supply crates near the eastern wall. It was a child's cry, the kind that came from deep sadness rather than a simple tantrum. Kira hesitated. Her stomach screamed at her to ignore it and eat. Her mind told her it was not her problem. But her feet carried her toward the sound anyway. Behind the crates, she found a little girl. The child could not have been more than 6 years old. She wore a dirty pink jacket and had her knees pulled up to her chest. Her face was streaked with tears and her brown hair was tangled and messy. She looked up at Kira with huge, frightened eyes. Kira knelt down slowly. "Hey there," she said softly. "What is your name?" The girl sniffled. "Sophie," she whispered. "Hi, Sophie." "I am Kira. Where are your parents?" Fresh tears spilled down Sophie's cheeks. "I do not know. We got separated when everyone was running. I cannot find them. I looked everywhere." Her small voice broke. "I am so hungry." Kira's heart sank. She looked around the shelter, scanning the crowds for anyone who might be searching for a lost child. She saw nothing but masses of people focused on their own survival. She looked down at the meal packet in her hand. Then she looked at Sophie's thin face and trembling lips. The decision took less than a second. Kira sat down beside Sophie and opened the meal packet. "When did you last eat?" she asked. Sophie thought hard. "Yesterday morning, I think. Maybe the morning before. I do not remember." Kira handed her the nutrient bar first. "Here, eat this slowly, okay? If you eat too fast, you will get sick." Sophie's eyes went wide. "But that is your food." "I already ate," Kira lied smoothly. "I got an extra packet." "Take it." It was not a good lie, and Sophie seemed smart enough to doubt it, but hunger won over skepticism. The little girl took the bar with shaking hands and bit into it carefully. Kira watched her eat and felt something twist in her chest. It was not regret exactly. It was more like a fierce, protective anger at a universe that could put a 6-year-old child in this situation. She gave Sophie the vegetables next, then the protein paste. The girl ate everything slowly, just as Kira had instructed. When the meal was finished, Sophie looked much better. Color had returned to her cheeks. Her hands stopped shaking. She looked at Kira with gratitude that seemed too large for such a small person to contain. "Thank you," Sophie said. "You are very nice." Kira smiled even though her stomach felt like it was eating itself. "You are welcome. Now let's find someone who can help locate your parents, okay?" She took Sophie's hand and led her toward the security station. As they walked through the crowded shelter, Kira noticed a few people watching them. An older man nodded at her with approval. A woman with a baby gave her a sad smile. Most people did not notice at all. They were too lost in their own struggles. At the security desk, Kira explained the situation to a guard named Carlos. He looked exhausted but listened patiently. He took Sophie's information and promised to broadcast her description and her parents' names over the shelter's communication system. He also said he would check the registry of all evacuees. It might take time, he warned, but they would find her family. Kira stayed with Sophie for another hour, keeping her company and telling her stories about the machines she fixed at the spaceport. Sophie listened with fascination, her earlier fear gradually fading. Eventually, another volunteer came to take Sophie to the children's area, where lost kids waited for their families. Kira hugged her goodbye and watched her walk away. Then Kira found a quiet corner of the shelter, sat down against the cold wall, and tried to ignore the hunger that gnawed at her insides. She did not regret what she had done. She could not regret it. Some choices mattered more than comfort. Some choices defined who you were when everything else was stripped away. She closed her eyes and tried to sleep. Outside, the radiation storms continued. Above, in orbit, the relief ships fought through the solar wind, and somewhere in that vast shelter, a little girl named Sophie was finally sleeping with a full stomach. That, Kira decided, was enough. That had to be enough.